Hi, I'm Chris Griego with Edwards Instrument Company, and today I'm joined by Christopher Bassett of currently the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra. And thanks for being with me here today. Sorry for the little awkwardness. It's just, that's me, so please deal with me. Can you tell us a little bit about your trip up here today to Elkhorn?
Yeah, good old Elkhorn. I love the name. So today, just drive on up and back. I'm lucky enough to be in St. Louis where the drive's only 5 hours one way. And there's no Buc-ee's either, which makes me
That Highway 65 is so exciting, isn't it?
It's very exciting. I love it.
It's just like straight.
But I drive a Honda, and their lane keep assist system is as close to autopilot as it could be. So it actually makes the trip really easy. Anyway, I didn't come for driving as much as you might think I love to drive now. No, I just came for a really minor adjustment to my horn ahead of a trial week in San Francisco, just to make sure everything lines up really, really well. The horn plays great, but I just wanted to come up and fine-tune, tweak a couple little things.
And in the background, we took the instrument apart, we went through the valves, cleaned everything, ultrasonic, made sure everything was maintained. We changed out a spit valve spring that hadn't worked for a while.
A few years, maybe. Every time I touch it, I'm just hoping is this the end?
And so,
please don't be the end.
So just doing a few basic maintenance things, checking port alignment, and then just keeping things. A lot of times people will come up periodically just to have their instrument assessed and play for us. And I think it's good to have friends that can do this and take care of you as a professional, because sometimes you're busy practicing and working on things. I recently had a bass trombone when I was in Boston, and I looked inside, and half the bore was gone, and it wasn't dented, and so it was pretty impressive. And I went back into the repair shop, and it was after lunch, thankfully, and then I showed everyone, and then cleaned it real quick. But I honestly, it could have been an easiest sell ever, because half the bore was gone. And you'd be like, oh, this is so much more open than mine. Well, of course, because half the bore's gone. So it's good to have friends to maintain your instruments.
It is.
And now I'd like to know a little bit about your bass trombone history. So we were just talking, and you started on a Yamaha.
Started on a Yamaha P-Shooter.
300 series.
300.
And from the small bore, that's a 500 bore. And then you moved up to...
Then I graduated very quickly in a year. I graduated to a Getzen 1052 FDR because I thought the red bill was prettier. Before that, which I actually forgot to mention to you a second ago, I had like an intermediary horn that was like a Yamaha single valve bass that was part of the school owned it. They were like, hey, try this. It's got a valve. You can have more fun. Smelled like band room. You open up that blue Protec case and you just got wafted by band brass instrument.
When I was in Texas, I had bought a Yamaha bass. It was a double valve section, and a single valve bell section. And that was my first bass trombone ever, because I wanted to be able to take a gig if it ever came up on tenor or bass. So from that, you went to the Getzen 1052 FDR, which is actually the first bass trombone I was ever involved with Getzen, actually. Interesting. And it's an independent valve setup. So did you find it a struggle going from a 500 bore to a large 562 bore bass trombone at that age?
I was in 7th grade, so anything was a struggle, I guess, but not particularly. My teacher at the time was Sean Royce, and we ended up, we moved to bass, but he kept me on a smaller mouthpiece, on a 5G, actually, just so, I could navigate it and whatnot. Eventually, I moved over to the 1.5 that came stock with it at the time. From there, just kind of moved along. That got me through college auditions into school, and then eventually where I needed something that could allow me to get to that next level from where I was, and I was fortunate enough to be in school with at NEC with Mr. Markey at the time that you guys were developing the 502, and ordered it before it was released to the public, and number 10 is still in my hands today.
Interesting. It's so fascinating to see how people progress. So when you made the switch from the 1052 Getson to the Edwards 502, was it beneficial, you think? Because Getson owns Edwards, and we're a division of Getson. Did you find it easy to switch between the instruments?
Oh yeah, and then some. And for me, it was unlocking, switching kind of unlocked everything that I'd been looking for. You know, the Getson's great instrument, first and foremost, and everything you guys are doing right now with the line is better than ever.
Yeah.
I mean, they're basically on par with Edwards at this point.
Yeah.
It's just, do you want custom options or not? That's almost the difference at this point. But I mean, the similarities between the brands are there because it again, parent company and whatnot. It's always going to sound similar. But the 502 just allowed me to open up, get into my own, really get into the instrument, have some more freedom with it. And I remember some friends of mine who are now, colleagues of mine at the professional level that were in school with me. They all kind of came to me and were like, "Whoa."
Yeah, they
That
noticed.
new horn,
They noticed.
Whoa, all of a sudden.
Was it the sound or was it
Everything.
Yeah.
It was everything to do with it. Mostly sound, but also just like effortlessness. You could hear instantly that just all of a sudden something opened up.
Now, when you were at NEC, when you got the 502,
Yeah.
did you consult with your teacher
Oh, yeah.
before you got the instrument?
Yeah, what I've learned in my life is just do what your teacher tells you to. It works. But yeah, I talked to Jim for a little while before getting the instrument, and I was thinking about it a while before, and he told me just wait a little bit. We're working on something right now. Back in 2013, that was almost done at that point and would be released in 2014. So I ended up waiting for it, and yeah, I just after playing, I don't know, I think I must have played on the final prototype for like 2 minutes in a lesson. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll get this. But that's also from a person I'm not an equipment person. I'm not an equipment junkie. I trust that, there's people like you that know what they're doing. You do it for a living. You're the person I'm going to listen to.
Somehow, I make a living doing this. It's incredible.
Well, somehow I make a living making fart noises into an instrument, and they come out pretty, and somebody pays me for it. But no, really, just like, I'm not a person who does this for a living. I don't know what I'm doing with any of it. So the last thing I want to do is start putting one thing here. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But with years of experience, years of work on certain instruments to get a final product to be exactly what you want, there's so much trust that can go into that, from just being able to play a couple minutes and knowing, yeah, this works or it doesn't work. From there, you get into it. You can always fine tune it. You can adjust to exactly what you need down the line.
And that's a lot of times when I'm working with a musician, I just simply better or worse. I keep it very simple for the player, because it's either going to be better or worse. And you get to a point where everyone in the room is content and loves the resonance, loves the core of sound, loves the depth of sound. And when and then when you leave, and people always say, "Well, what do you think?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know," until you're in the hall and with your colleagues. Then that's the true test. Can they hear you?
Yeah.
Does it push them too much, or are they able to relax and get into your sound and work with you? And so there's a lot of dynamics here, and I love working with people like yourself and doing these small adjustments. And then when you leave, generally you'll let me know within a couple of weeks how things are going and progressing.
Yeah.
I'll never mess with your control, your original setup, so you'll still always have that backup, and never modify your control, because you can never go back from that. And so that's whenever I'm working with people on instruments, I'm very cautious with the control. This is where you're at, then we'll work over here. And it's not trying to sell you something. It's just so that in case you get back and something is not working, you have a second parachute.
Yeah, and that's happened to me before too. At certain points in our
That
trajectory.
happened.
Yeah.
What was that? Remember that story?
Which one exactly?
You were up here, you were visiting, and you got something, and you went back, you're like, no, that didn't work. What was that? We'll have to pause here, because do you remember this?
What was that? I do. I know what you're talking about. Was
And
it
you went
just
and you
a
played,
lead pipe?
It was just a lead pipe, and you played for Jim, and Jim was like, no. You played for him. That was a few years ago.
Yeah, that was just...
Do you remember that?
Was that just a couple years? Was that a couple years ago, or was it just last year?
I think it may have been last fall.
Yeah. It was good when we were here. It was good for a minute, but then yeah. No, I don't know if Jim said it, but I noticed it by playing with Jim at the very least.
Yeah.
And I knew that was a no.
Yeah.
For me, I try to maintain his sound in my sounds. That's the horn at the end of the day. But I can do my own thing with that sound. But the second I lose it, I know something's way off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so was that just what led you down that path? I mean, I was here, I was with you.
Yeah, no, I mean,
but
I was just looking for something, and I think that came from a while ago, just getting out kind of in my own career and professionalism, just trying to find myself, but not realizing I had myself to begin with.
Yeah.
First time I ever came up to do something proper, I ended up going home with a new slide, really liked the sound. And over time, I kept thinking like, oh, I need more and more, wider, or something, essentially to that, that degree, a whole bunch of more minutia in there than just something that simple. But eventually, exactly with the control thing, that's where I find myself again now. I'm back exactly how the instrument came. The only thing that's changed, this isn't my horn, but the only thing that's changed is now the mouthpiece is gold plated, because I all of a sudden realized all I'd been looking for was just a little bit more bloom on the sound, and sometimes the gold will just give you that.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's okay to make mistakes, but always have your control as a secondary parachute.
Yeah, because you never know when you might go back to it.
Right. And I honestly a lot of times don't trust you've noticed that I'm kind of paranoid, and I will always second guess myself. I'll have somebody else check my ears, whether it be Jesse, or have you record yourself and listen back, because at times I'll even question, well, did I hear it right? Because it could be if I was in the factory around a loud motor, maybe that skewed me a certain way, or I'm always paranoid about this. So if you're coming up, bring your recording equipment. And I just had some young students from Interlochen. It was a fantastic day. And they both had their phones recording.
Oh, good.
And it's not a great recording that they got, because I would listen back, but at least they were recording.
Yeah.
And it's a first step. It's something. It's better than nothing. So absolutely, record yourself, have a secondary set of ears, somebody that you trust that knows your sound, and push forward from there.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk to people about bass trombones, like what you see out in the real world, and where you think sound is heading right now?
Yeah. Where I think sound is heading, man.
That's a heavy question.
It's a heavy question.
Sorry, I'm just gonna
No, that's a heavy question, and some of you might not like the answer, and I'm okay with that. I think there's a lot of loud out there right now, and that's not our job. In many ways, that's not our job. We play a supportive instrument in the orchestra. We're not a solo instrument, and we shouldn't be barking at the back, trying to be the loudest thing on stage. There are moments that, we can play out. I love playing out. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love it, but I also like playing as soft as you possibly can and trying to make the audience come to you rather than, just being there. Make a special moment. And something else I see too is I've got several recitals coming up in the spring at CSU as part of my degree for this year, but also some stuff going on at IU covering for Dr. Pollard's studio a little bit on his sabbatical. That I think it's important we really remember our heritage, that we're a vocal accompaniment at the very heart of the instrument. The instrument is a chromatic brass instrument that was paired with choirs to give them a pitch. And I think it's really helpful to play art songs, lieder, learn phrasing, be more sensitive. We play an instrument that, we have to be cautious with. It's an instrument that can project a lot, but it's not always about us. Most of the time in an orchestra, it isn't. And the more mature we can be about that, the better we're going to play, the better our colleagues are going to like us. So many stories from colleagues in other orchestras that I won't get into that about other folks, but just it's not all about the trombone section. It's about a collective whole at the end of the day. And we're all a team. We're all putting in the same amount of effort to create this piece of art that a composer pretty laboriously put together. And unless you're playing Mahler, who wrote out exactly every dynamic for every instrument in the orchestra, you can't take 5 Fs on a page in Tchaikovsky and really think it means that. So that's kind of what I see right now as being maybe a little younger into the career, but something that does worry me a little bit is this sense of just, it's all about the trombone section.
I would ask you this question.
Yeah.
How do you qualify loud? How do you qualify loud?
Sure. How do I qualify? Well, and what I'm talking about is when it becomes kind of abrasive, when it's just overdoing it, if it's either covering something else that's important going on or whatnot. Again, I love to play strong. I really do, actually, and I can do it.
But
there's moments.
a Mahler loud will be different than a Mozart loud.
Exactly.
And you have to be mature enough to understand the music, the period, and then the instrumentation and the style. So a lot of times, whenever I'm working with people, they'll play soft and they'll play loud, but they'll forget the mezzos. And so at times, I've even done this, not being rude, I'll grab my decibel meter and I'll walk over and I'll put it on the stand in front of somebody, people that I know, obviously. And they'll be like, what? I'm like, oh, I'm just curious. And then I'll kind of stand beside them and they'll keep playing the music, but all of a sudden they become very self-aware. And they will then start having more contrasts and more dynamic, and they automatically start playing more musically. And so I try and qualify everything because it's a lot of times in machining we qualify things, we measure things, and in music I do the same thing. For this style, what would what soft? What's my pianissimo? What is my mezzo all the way through? And I think sometimes I'll put a decibel meter, it's
an effective tool.
It is, and it's free. It's a little app, and you just But it's just one more thing. But qualifying loud and being appropriate to the style.
Yeah,
that's huge. That's if you can do that, I think you'll go far in life.
Yeah,
because you're self-aware.
Exactly. Being self-aware is not something that comes easy either. It's just you gotta know, and exactly what you're saying. There's a difference between what you see as 1F on the page in Mozart and what you see in Mahler. In Mahler, you can get a little raucous, and it's kind of good. It's exactly what you want, what you're looking for. But if I'm playing Mozart, Beethoven, Schumann, I'm playing a different instrument, first off. But I'm just, even if I'm not, I might play piano. And that's a forte. That's enough for the ensemble. That's enough for what I need. That's enough for the color I'm after. And that's enough for what its purpose is at the end of the day.
That's fantastic advice. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. We've covered a lot of subjects. If you have any, I run into Chris every couple of years. If you have any questions that you'd like to have me ask him next time he's visiting, just leave them in the comments below and we'll get to them. So thanks for being with us today.